Hey, I'm Thomas Hawkins with the Successful Practices Network and the National Dropout Prevention Center. I just want to quickly debrief from my AI ethics and education speech I just got to give at the Future Focus Schools Conference. While I was presenting in Fayetteville, North Carolina a few months ago, I had a 5-minute section I planned to just briefly touch on some interesting topics and give some resources if anybody was interested in ethics before we talked about policy. And it ended up turning into a multi-hour discussion. It was the entirety of my lunch discussion too. When we took a break, teachers, administrators, everyone really craves that space to sit and talk about ethics. So in my ethics presentation, I did my best to frame up some of the conversations I've had with people since then, and frame up some of the conversations that I think teams and administrations need to have around it, outside of just the generic "is this safe" and student data policy. I started with looking at the what I consider the big personal problem. And while it's personal, it's us as individuals. What do we give to AI? It's also what do we as people give to AI as a collective? What tasks do we hand it and things like that? And it's a much bigger meta conversation. I'm not really qualified to give it, so I hand off a couple of resources. I mostly utilize Jeffrey Hinton, the founder of Backpropagation, which is also the founder of AI, and give some of the ways he's tackled the problem personally. I don't think there's anybody better than the guy that made it to talk about the social implications of it. I don't think anyone's gotten to think about it as long as he has. So I went from that, and we did that as a jumping off point in a place of personal privacy, data protection, and then looking at that in a personal and as professionals. Then I jump into what a lot of people immediately just call the cheating problem. AI allows students to cheat. I break down how quickly and how easily students can utilize AI to bypass almost anything, whether it's online tests, anything you've ever built in LMS, papers, and then I show really quickly through the use of TikTok how students are able to defeat any sort of AI detector you've ever used. I utilize TikTok in all of my examples for this presentation because Dr. Daggett and Dr. Peters and Ray McNulty are always on my case about we need to be where the students are. I need to know what students are seeing and what they're processing and things like that. And so I actually made a fresh TikTok account that has never searched for anything other than students cheating with AI, help me cheat on this test, and AI for teachers. Really quickly, within an hour of scrolling on it, it is 1,000% just that. And it helps me build content for these things, but it also shows me what are our students, and to an extent, what are our practitioners seeing in their social media. Average 18-year-old in America spends somewhere around 57 minutes a day on TikTok. So if they're there for that long every day, I should be there for at least a few minutes each week to see what they're seeing, to understand what pressures they have around them. In doing that, I realized just how brazen some of the cheating is, and it really made me take a step back. When I look at it, I want to sit and break down all these problems with it, and then you make it to the teacher side of TikTok and you see all these, what I look at now is stopgap measures, things like the Trojan horse that you toss in your essay prompt asking it to talk about Frankenstein and Billy Ray Cyrus, and then all of a sudden a student's essay has some bogus paragraph about Billy Ray Cyrus and Frankenstein in it, and you caught them. And are really focused in on, as we build out future-focused classrooms and future-focused curriculum and projects and things like that, we shouldn't be hunting for these stopgap measures, these things that catch a student a single time and they're punitive. While they do have their place right now, and they do provide us this almost crucial feedback as to who needs more work or who's plagiarizing, just with the utilization of AI, I assure people you'll only catch someone using those things once. It's punitive and it's not building. The last part of my presentation, I focused in on our need for digital citizenship as just a domain of practice within our schools and our communities. Digital citizenship allows us to build in a way that means we can move past some of these little measures. We can move towards having AI work with students. But we also need to look at things like digital safety. We need to look at digital downtime, getting students away from computers a certain amount of time. We need to teach them those soft skills and those life skills before we put them out into this even more interconnected world than we live in this moment. Still raise words. The rate of change right now is the slowest it will ever be. And when you start looking at the change and the pace that we've had with AI over the last 3 years, it's incredible, and we need to prepare our students for that incredible rate of change. I was able to round out my presentation showcasing some of the models and things we use, whether it was VUCA, polarities, consequences wheels, and things like that we've used to sit down with teams and break apart what it means to pick apart policy, ethics. How do we start building better classrooms, better curriculum, and how do we do it when we're already so resource limited, time limited, we're emotionally limited? These aren't easy things to tackle with a group, and so I talked about navigating some of those things and what we've done at SPN and the National Dropout Prevention Center when we go into schools and they're facing these issues. The biggest feedback I got from this presentation is that this issue is so prevalent everywhere. Everyone was facing it in the room. I had people from all over the United States, an incredible split between district level, building level, and practitioner level educators. And the questions are the same at the end of the day. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're in a big school, rural school. It doesn't matter if you're inner city, at risk, or high performing. Everyone's facing this, and everyone's really at the same place, which I think is an interesting piece, because that means for those of us that work with our at-risk populations, we're at a place where we can really pull forward. We can create opportunities for our students, but we have to be future focused. We have to know, apply, engage. We have to focus on those domains, and we really have to look at what's important in our community for our students if we're going to move forward and continue to integrate AI and other ed tech. We use AI and ethics as just this big blanket term, and it's an easier way to frame up the conversation and get people in the door. But it's not just AI. It's advancing technologies in general and advancing practices, advancing research. How do we create this room for change and a constant change in our systems? And that's what we're tackling at the Successful Practices Network. And I'm really excited to continue to be a part of that work.